Nate, I probably recorded 500 podcasts with you, maybe more. I'm still honestly like a little bit nervous right now.
Really?
Yeah,
GD politics?
it's a whole new world.
What's it stand for?
It's dealer's choice. In the run up to this, I purchased goddamnpolitics.com. I purchased goshdarnpolitics.com for our religious friends. And I also purchased galandruthpolitics.com.
Good dude politics.
Hello and welcome to the GD Politics Podcast. I'm Galen Drew. In late 2015, shortly after I turned 25, I got hired part-time to produce a brand new politics podcast. The concept was something along the lines of data, but make it fun. And a buzzy new media company recently acquired by ESPN was behind it. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. I just moved back to New York City after working for an NPR affiliate in Wisconsin, and I didn't have a job. The newsroom was full of nerds with big, often contrarian ideas and a taste for beer. And I fit right in. What followed was the ride of a lifetime. The 538 Politics Podcast, the show we'd end up creating, would define the next decade of my life and set me on the path that would land me here today, hosting the very first episode of the GD Politics Podcast. In case you're late to the news, ABC shuttered 538 earlier this month. I came to love and respect a lot of people in that job, but there's one person who loomed particularly large over the experience. He's bold, pioneering, knows how to whip the chattering classes into a frenzy, and is funnier than most people give him credit for.
That's not a compliment.
Welcome to the very first episode of the GD Politics Podcast, my dear, dear friend, Nate Silver.
Good to see you, Galen. By the way, since I'm listening, you don't drink beer, right? You're gluten resistant, hesitant.
I think you're the only person who could call me out on that. You're right. I had originally written booze, but I thought that was a little too heavy-handed, so I changed it to beer.
Just trying to keep you on your toes.
I'm really glad that you're here, and I have a list a mile long of topics that I want to discuss with you.
Perfect.
But just to start, it has been almost 2 years since we recorded a podcast together. How you doing, man?
To full disclosure to the audience, we see each other reasonably often. Yeah.
I mean, okay, but not in these circumstances.
No, fair enough. No. Remember the last show at the Bell House where the writing seemed very much on the wall? I think we all knew. I mean, they didn't shutter the site, and they kept a third of people around for another year and a half, for 2 years or whatever it was. But it felt like something big and bad was gonna happen.
Yeah, Nate, that is the last podcast we recorded together, was a sold-out live show at the Bell House.
Subtlety, the Walt Disney Corporation.
Well, I knew something was up because I had invited all of the people who worked with us at ABC, and every single person to a person came up with an excuse for why they couldn't come to the live show. And I was like, that's awfully strange. None of these people are coming to the live show. And then a few days later, they laid off most of the site. And so, yeah, we haven't been in front of microphones together since then. And since that time, you started a Substack, the Silver Bulletin. You wrote a book, On the Edge. What else have you been doing?
I have my own podcast, Risky Business. I'm going to have, Galen, I'm going to have you on Substack Live or something where we do a Democratic presidential candidates draft for 2028. So that topic is off limits. It's reserved.
Yes, indeed.
It's like you can't, if I order the steak at dinner, you can't get the exact same steak. It's that kind of thing.
Well, but anyway, we have one more thing cooking up, which I'm just going to mention right at the top. We are going to do a welcome back live show, a 538 reunion. It's in almost exactly a month. I'm not going to share the details right now. I think I'm going to share them first in the paid subscribers chat. You know, you got to give people some recognition, man, for being supporters this early on in the process. So yeah, I'm going to share some details there. If any of those people want to come to the 538 live show reunion, they can, and then I'll share those details more broadly. But I think it's going to be a good time. And And it's not just going to be you. It's going to be some other folks whose names rhyme with Blair and Barry. Like I said, I don't want to give too much information away so soon, but we've got a lot cooking up. So, Nate, now that whole chapter is over, 538 as part of Disney, I'm curious if there's a particular memory, good or bad, that either like sticks out in a particular way or maybe defines the whole experience for you.
Experiences I feel comfortable sharing in a public forum. I mean, you work together, you work in a place for a long time, and there are a lot of ups and downs. But probably the emblematic story, right, was we relaunched under ESPN actually almost exactly 11 years ago today, because we did it right during March Madness. So we paid a lot of attention to like designing the site quite beautifully, right? I don't know. I did a lot of like bragging on Twitter about we're hiring an intern who graduated from Dartmouth College with a minor. It was so stupid and braggy. It was like inevitably setting a target on your back. But anyway, our goal, and this was a mistaken goal. Like the goal should have been to have this is a year or two before you're there, right? Our goal should have been to have really good content and have proof of concept with like a bunch of stuff that just like kicked ass, right? Instead, we had like a really pretty website that didn't break, and we were proud of ourselves, and we didn't really have enough experience. But anyway, the site went up, nothing broke, the traffic was pretty good in line with our expectations, and we're having beers, and we're like, well, that was nice, right? And then we're like, oh shit, we have to do this every fucking day. We have to go back every fucking day and populate the site with content, and then yeah, look, I'll be honest, I think the first couple of years were kind of difficult, right? To scale up from a founder's brand to a larger thing, and it took a while, I think, to get our stride. But like one thing I'd say is like I think that the mistakes that were made, and this is also true, by the way, of presidents, right? The mistakes that like Joe Biden made kind of were set in early, or the things that Trump is doing now and Elon are doing now, I mean, you can't necessarily put the cat back in the bag, but like, yeah, from the start, it was never really a business model around it, right? From the start, we had the incentive, or I'd had the incentive, because when ESPN buys you, there was like a little bidding war, and like, I'm like, okay, now's the only time we can like actually ask for stuff, right? We can actually ask for like headcounts and resources. At first, it was funny how you like get invited to different types of events within the ESPN universe, right? At first, you're getting invited to like the Super Bowl and like the owners' boxes and things like that, right? And then
by the end, they're like, I don't know, we can maybe find you a ticket to this playoff game. I'm not sure.
If that, are you on the ESPN radio box at MSG with people you don't know? I mean, it declined. It declined. That was for regular. It declined, I think, right? But like, so we hired a lot of people very quickly without really much of an editorial plan or a business plan, apart from like to expand the scope of what we were covering. But by 2016, and then 2016, I thought editorially and design wise and with interactives, the site was like much more itself, right? But then a certain Donald J. Trump won the presidency. I'm not sure if we want to rehash that, but
no,
yeah,
we
so
won't
it was
rehash
like
that here.
2018 and 2019 were pretty good, right? Like 2017 to 2019 was like kind of like the glory years of the site. I thought we performed very well as a site in like 2020, but like, then the pandemic hit. So it was just a miserable year for, I think, anybody who's alive. Even, I guess there's some people who are like, what's the verb for like cozy? Like, it's like a L, it's like a 5-letter.
Hygge, the Danish word.
I fucking, yeah. Those fucking Danes. Fucking Danes.
I was down on COVID before you were even down on COVID. In our first staff meeting, when you decided to send us all home to be remote before everyone was officially sent home, I was like, I don't think we should be doing this. I want to be back in the office. I'm like one of the most extroverted people you'll ever meet. So early on, I was like, I don't like this. I don't want to work from home. Let's go back to the office. And everyone was like, Galen, what are you talking about? But speaking of the glory days of 538, do you remember when WeWork sponsored the podcast to the tune of like millions of dollars, and we spent that 2018, 2019 period traveling to WeWorks all over the country, doing live shows and Q&As with people who were just happened to be working at WeWork that day?
I kind of suppressed that memory. And maybe not a good sign that the one company that really decided to sponsor us, they're pretty nice buildings.
Would you, in retrospect, do it all again? You
No.
know now how everything worked out. You know, starting at
fucking way.
ESPN.
No
No
way.
fucking way.
No way in a million years. Like, okay, but that's having had that experience. So this is kind of with the benefit of hindsight. I would have built things differently, right? First of all, I mean, again, the original sin is like, I would have found a way to like actually have this is with perfect hindsight, right? Have a business model which is primarily oriented around subscriptions, number one, right? Number two, I would
Subscribe to gdpolitics.com. Thank you very much.
Or Silver Bulletin.
Or
Number two,
Silver Bulletin, of course.
I would hire more slowly. Number three, I would like, not be trying to quite do like, we fit a lot of stuff that didn't really work at the site was stuff like, there's a school shooting somewhere. How do we cover this with data? Right. I thought the kind of conception of like data journals was like a little bit too narrow and kind of blinkered, right? I mean, like what works? I mean, actually a lot of things do work, right? Like some of the things that worked well were like Claire Malone or like Perry Bacon writing with distinct voices about politics. And that somehow worked better, I think, than like, because they are a unique, really good journalist. And like that somehow works better because it's like more rigorous and like a factoid about here's a chart with school shootings or things like that, right? And so like, but letting things emerge a bit more organically. I mean, certainly like having like, we didn't launch this is 100% my fault, didn't launch like the House model or the midterm model in 2014, which kind of was a relatively boring election, right? Until like September or October. Actually didn't have a House model, which had like a Senate model, right? But like, focusing more on like things that we had high reason to believe would work and then iterating from there and developing. But it's almost a reverse it's like, okay, you get a big blank check, not a blank check, you get a bit budget from Disney and you're like, we have to spend all this money, right? And it's like, if you watch like Supermarket Sweep, you know what I mean? This is, I don't know if I'm dating myself or like gayifying myself or both, right? But Supermarket Sweep.
Both. I mean,
what is it? You have to like spend the most you can. I don't know what constraints there are. You have to like run around the aisles and like spend the most you can in like a 30-minute like shopping spree, right? So yeah, not having a business model was tough. And then there's maybe more kind of like, I really go back and forth. Like one other problem you have when you're a founder, right, is like how much to like stick to people who kind of like share your ethos and your values versus saying, I don't want like 30 clones of myself, right? And I'm not sure if we ever, it's hard to do. I'm not sure what the right answer
Well,
was
do you
exactly.
feel like you should have hired more people like you?
Not okay. So, and we're being very candid here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that like, I'm not sure I kind of recognize like some of the things that I stood for necessarily, apart from I think there were more like implicit political divides within the newsroom between, for lack of a better term, more left-wing and more centrist staffers. And probably, by the way, on the scale of like other media properties, this is probably like a 4.5 out of 10, where the average is very high, right? Like every newsroom like has these arguments, right? But like I'm coming from a point of view where like I care about like sports and like poker, and like if it were up to me, we'd probably cover more like tech, and I guess it was a little soon for AI stuff like 10 years ago, right? But the attitude would be like a little bit different.
I want to talk about some of what's actually going on in the world, but before we do, with the closure of 538, there's been a lot of reflection on data journalism, what happens next for it, but also how it's changed newsrooms and its value as a worldview. I've heard you in some interviews even sort of say that you don't love the word data journalism anymore, but what do you see as the future of that kind of work? Taking data and evidence and trying to apply it to the everyday newsroom, describing what's going on in the world.
I mean, to a first approximation,